Imagine placing your trust in a doctor only to find out that your surgeon is a dangerous predator. This is the chilling story of Dr. Christopher Duntsch, a neurosurgeon who left a trail of mutilated patients in his wake. Dubbed Dr. Death by the media, Duntsch's career is a shocking tale of medical malpractice, systematic failures, and unimaginable suffering. How did this seemingly skilled surgeon become one of the most notorious medical criminals in history? Join us as we delve into the horrifying details of Dr. Duntsch's practice and the lives he forever changed. Christopher Duntsch. He was a doctor who practiced medicine in the 2000s. From 2011 to around 2013, primarily in the Dallas-Plano area, infamously known for botching his patients, leaving them paralyzed for life, and some of them even resulting in death. Now, Duntsch was born in 1971, and he was a football player in high school and was looking to go pro. He began studying medicine in college. He eventually got his medical degree. He studied with the best of the best. He had the best accolades behind his name, allegedly. Allegedly, he was involved with drugs when he was in his residency, hard drugs like Coca-Cola, even alcohol, before going in the operating room to operate on patients' spinal cords and vocal cords. He was a neurosurgeon, so he dealt with issues of the back, the spine, the brain, very, very sensitive areas. He was still allowed to finish out his residency, even though he had a known drug and alcohol problem. He did very unconventional and unapproved surgical procedures inside of the operating room and thought very highly of himself. His ego was on 10 million. Now that's a big ego, okay? His ego was up there. And when I say his ego was up there, it was up there. He thought he was the best of the best. No one can tell him how to do this the right way. He was the right way when it came to neurosurgery. And a lot of people looked up to him because of his high grades, and he was a scholar of sorts in medical school. Now, let's talk about some of his most standout victims, okay? So, in 2011, we had Kelly Martin, okay? Kelly Martin slipped off of a ladder, and she had a herniated disc in her back. She was doing some work. She slipped off a ladder and had a herniated disc, right? So from this herniated disc, she was referred to Dr. Duntsch to work on her. He was a very well-respected surgeon. She thought nothing of it. Everyone's talking about him. The surgery concludes. Her husband's not allowed to see her in recovery. It's taking longer than it should. Her children aren't allowed to see her, but they said, oh, she's recovering, but she's just in ICU. Things aren't looking good. But she's gonna recover. She'll be fine. Kelly Martin ended up passing away due to a medical miscalculation. I've never in the history of anything heard of a medical miscalculation. What exactly is that? She died from internal bleeding. When it came down to it, she died from internal bleeding. A simple procedure for a neurosurgeon, herniated disc. These are like very easy procedures for these very skilled people. How did she die from internal bleeding? Doesn't that mean something had to be cut or ruptured? Very strange. Another one of his victims, Jerry Summers. Jerry was Duntsch's childhood friend who was operated on by Dr. Death. And he had a herniated disc again. He is now a quadriplegic. He went in walking, he left out not feeling anything in any of his limbs, not being able to walk or move any of his limbs. Duntsch damaged some of the arteries in his back again, and Dr. Duntsch didn't even have the guts to tell him what happened. He just realized that this surgery went terribly wrong, and then he left the operating room and went to damage another patient, I assume. That was his childhood friend. We have Mary Eford. Mary Eford was operated on by Christopher Duntsch, and she woke up in extreme pain, like a lot of his patients did, and she could not feel her feet, her toes, nothing. Her legs, her extremities. The surgery was absolutely botched due to Duntsch's negligence. And there would be other people in the OR saying, hey, Dr. Duntsch, that doesn't look right. Hey, Dr. Duntsch, I don't think you should be doing that. Hey, Dr. Duntsch, can you look at this again? And he's like, no, I know what I'm doing. You need to step back. He had so much of an ego and a power trip, probably from the drugs that he was doing, allegedly, that no one could tell him that he was wrong. He couldn't be making a miscalculation. He couldn't be making a mistake, nothing. He would literally do these drugs, allegedly, and then go into the operating room and operate. And this alcohol and whatever other drugs he had at the time, he would do them in excess and then go and operate on real people. Unbelievable. The very last patient that he operated on. He operated on tons of patients, over 100, right? But the very last one, before it took somebody to, I don't know, catch the hell on, right? Jeff, an artery, again, was punctured during the surgery, and a sponge was used to soak up all the blood. It was like so much blood, because artery, it's always going to be blood. If you puncture an artery, you puncture a vein, there's going to be a lot of blood, because that's the blood supply. Blood flows through those things. So doctors, surgeons have to be very careful. Like, that's your number one job as a surgeon, I feel like. When you go to medical school, or when you go to surgery school, or you go to cutting on people school, is to not hit people's arteries or veins. Like, that's the number one risk factor, is cutting the blood supply to your patients' bodies. And it seems like when I was doing the research on Christopher Duntsch, and I was watching videos associated or about Christopher Duntsch, it seems like a lot of his patients had the same demise in the arteries being hit. It didn't seem like he had a steady hand, because he was in there and he was just jabbing at whatever. I feel like surgeons need a steady hand. They need to be able to see properly. Sometimes they have on the little glasses, the binoculars, the microscopes, and they have steady hands, because one wrong slit can end somebody's life, can make them bleed out on a table. So the fact that he's impaired mentally from the alcohol, allegedly, from the Coca-Cola, allegedly, he might go in there thinking that he's looking at an artery and it's not. Or he's thinking that he's looking at the tissues that he needs to move out of the way, but it's not. It's the alcohol speaking, or it's the Coca-Cola speaking. He's like, oh, yeah, I got it. He was an addict, allegedly. An addict. And addicts don't need to be practicing medicine. I'm sorry to put it that way. But they don't. It's like, especially surgeons at that. You're a surgeon. You're a surgeon. You're a surgeon. You're a surgeon. You need the cleanest mind. You need the steadiest hand. You need the sharpest eyes. And I already know, after I have a shot or two, which I don't do often, my vision is kind of blurry a little bit. So if you're going in there and you're operating on a person, and you're even looking through binoculars, and you're just like, there's no way you can see what you think you're seeing. You're not seeing what's really there. You're seeing what is the impaired image due to the alcohol's effect on your brain. And that probably had a large, huge bit to do with why these patients ended up the way they were. The sponge that he used to soak up the blood was sewed into the patient. So the patient was in extreme pain waking up. And how in the hell do you sew a sponge into a patient? Where are the surgery techs? Where are the other doctors on call? Where did the anesthesiologist? I know the anesthesiologist is like behind this drape and like making sure you're, alive and anesthetized, but did anybody say anything or see anything? Apparently people saw things. His colleagues saw it. They reported them. But why did 32 to 100 people have to go through this before it was reported? That makes absolutely no sense. So the investigation goes a little bit something like this, right? So after Kelly Martin, which was the first death in 2011 that we talked about, he had to take a drug test. And he came back clean. The first one came back diluted with water, and the second one came back clean. Now, it's not hard to pass a drug test. Okay? There are ways to pass a drug test if you are not clean. I'm going to leave it like that. I'm not going into details. I don't need to go into details about that. Okay? The first time it was diluted. Okay? There's ways to do it. I'm not giving you the starter guide, but there's ways to do it. I don't believe he was clean ever. His actions didn't show that of a man that was clean ever. Duntsch cases have been reviewed, and the hospital he was working at where Miss Martin passed away, they asked him, hey, you need to resign. We're not going to say anything, but hey, you need to resign. You're really well respected. We're going to give you a chance. This lady passed away. Who says that after somebody passes away? We're not going to report this, but no, report it. That was strange, right? And the thing about it is people pass away from surgery every day, right? But it's usually related to anesthesia or something that their body couldn't handle the anesthesia, right? Anesthesia related complications, I've had 2 surgeries, right? And in both of them, I've had some type of anesthesia related complication, right? It wasn't anything related to them cutting on an artery in my body. That is a surgeon related complication. That's not a medicine related complication. They need to figure out what medicines you're allergic to. This had nothing to do with the medicine. It had something to do with the practitioner incorrectly performing medicine on them, right? 2 totally different things. So that should have been reported, He should have been reported. And it could have stopped the cases that came to follow. But because he wasn't reported and they didn't log his number in the system, he went to another hospital, Dallas Medical Center. Some more sketchy things happened. He wasn't fired from there. They said again, hey, Dr. Duntsch, we're not gonna fire you. We're not gonna put this in the paper, but you need to resign. You're not practicing medicine the correct way. You need to go. You need to go, and just get out of here. What professional place says that? What place caring for people's lives says that? Just go. No. So finally, in 2013, after his colleagues complaining, these victims' families complaining, common sense kicking in, and he's jumping from hospital to hospital with nothing happening to him. In 2013, he was suspended by the medical board after several botched surgeries and several life-altering situations.
A Plano neurosurgeon has his license suspended after the medical board says his negligence resulted in at least 2 patient deaths. Patients tried to get their medical records from Dr. Christoph Duntsch's office today, but they were turned away. Fox 4's Natalie Solis joins us from Plano to explain why they walked away empty-handed. Natalie.
Yeah, well, Clarice, those frustrated patients were told by somebody on Dr. Duntsch's staff to show up here at his office between 4 and 5 o'clock this afternoon to pick up those medical records. Well, those patients showed up, but as you mentioned, they didn't walk away with anything. And so far, we know that 2 lawsuits have been filed and at least 3 more are on the way.
Carol McMillan, out of luck at Dr. Duntsch's office at the Texas Neurological Institute in Plano. Dr. Duntsch, seen here on Facebook, was scheduled to perform surgery on her tomorrow.
It's very frustrating. You know, I called starting last Friday to get my records.
On Wednesday, the Texas Medical Board issued a temporary suspension order of Duntsch's license because of imminent peril to public health and cited impairment by drugs or alcohol.
Not all of his patients had passed away, thank God, but a large majority of his patients experienced life-altering pain circumstances to where the narcotics, the highest grade of narcotics, couldn't help them with their pain. And one guy, not to mention, woke up with a sponge inside of him. And the Texas Medical Board permanently revoked his license short after. And he was led to rehab, straight to rehab. And they tried to make him go to rehab. He said no, no, no. He went and then he got out, right? Probably was dealing with issues there. And in 2014, he was arrested for shoplifting. Lost his home, his girlfriend. He had a couple kids, but he lost everything that he had, his license, his money, his girlfriend, and he went to live with his parents. The drug use probably continued. He probably needed money. He probably needed a way to make money or get money, or I don't know how he was making his money at the time. He was shoplifting at one point, so maybe he was allegedly using the items he got from the store to pay, to pay for his alcohol or his habit or whatever. But that's a very expensive habit to obtain, the drug habit or the alcohol habit. When you're a doctor, it doesn't really matter. You have the money to spend on luxury items or hobbies or activities, or in his case, drugs. He had that money. He had all the money to spend on those things. But when he lost his job, he lost his house, he lost his wife, he didn't have that money. So he literally had to get by and do what he could to get what he needed, what he felt he needed, right? Courts weren't letting it go. They said, you know what? You were just going in there. Your colleagues were telling you things didn't look right, and you still took over as the head physician in this, and you just did whatever you wanted to do. You mutilated these people. You ended up ending the life of some people. You maimed these humans. And he was charged. He was charged with aggravated assaults, maiming people, causing the death of people, and he went to trial, right? Because his attorneys felt like he's a bad doctor. He's done bad things, but he didn't try to kill him. So give him a break. As a defense attorney, that is not a good defense. I'm sorry. As a defense attorney, if your defense is he didn't try to do it, you need a better defense. You need to come from a different angle from, my client didn't try to, Your Honor. He's a licensed professional, baby. I don't know what you want me to say. In 2017, he was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole for we know at least 50 that he've operated on that have had pain, suffering. Some have even died because he was addicted to something and he couldn't get off his high horse to get help. Now he's in jail for the next 30 years of his life until he's 76. You know, he'll never practice medicine again. And the thing about it is, the Board of Medicine, the Texas Board of Medicine, would have gladly pardoned him, right? If he would have said, I have a problem. I don't see the Texas board saying, oh, you got an alcohol problem? Oh, you got a drug? Give me your license. They might, but you can get it back. You know, as long as you haven't hurt anyone, you see what I'm saying? You can get it back. This is definitely, I feel like he was an addict, right? That had a altered sense of self. He was very smart, very intelligent, but he just had an altered sense of self, and it just turned him into a person that did not care about the lives of others, the feelings of others. It was him and him only. And that led to his demise. Christopher Duntsch, Dr. Death, right? Dr. Death, the D series in this scandal. It's absolutely harrowing what happened with Dr. Duntsch, Kelly Martin, Jerry Summers, Mary Eford. Just a few of the names that suffered at the hands of Dr. Death. And guys, it's just very, very scary. Surgery in general. I want you to tell me why you think Dr. Duntsch was able to get away with it for so long, why Dr. Duntsch was able to practice for so long even after these sketchy things had happened under his care. What do you guys think? I just think that more people should be held liable. The hospitals, you know, people should be held liable. You should not be able to let one person do these types of things and just hop from hospital to hospital and just be like, oh, when I catch on to it, I got it. You might save somebody's life in the process. That's all I'm saying. You might save somebody's life. So you guys drop down your comments below about how you feel, what could have stopped this guy. Curious to know your opinions. I'm curious to know your thoughts. I want to thank everybody who subscribed to me. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I want to thank everybody who continues to engage, who continues to comment, who continues to subscribe, who continues to tap the like button. I thank you for all of that. It's so great that you guys continue to support, continue to come out. We're going to have a pretty good E video. I think D was pretty good. I hadn't known about Dr. Duntsch, so we're all learning together, guys. And I really appreciate you guys for tapping into the video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye now.